The problem is everybody wants to take away your accomplishments once you say that you use steroids. So once you use steroids, like how you got that $100 million, that was because of steroids. Or how you did this is because of steroids. And it's really not. Like Liverking obviously is a genius when it comes to marketing.
Fighting out of Sacramento, California.
Woo! What you gonna do?
Better. Stronger.
Son of a bitch.
Faster.
Oh yeah!
So you saw it like the Liverking, he comes out and he says like, oh, I was using this, and this, but I was using this growth hormone and this and that. And in the apology, he says like that yes, I use steroids now. It's all prescribed by a doctor. He doesn't necessarily say what he's taking now, but a doctor's never going to give you 10 IUs of growth hormone a week, no matter what. There's no doctor on the planet that's going to give you that unless possibly you're an AIDS patient. They used to prescribe really, really high doses for people with HIV and muscle wasting. I actually talked to my friend Horseshoe yesterday. He was amazing. And I asked him what he thought, about the Liverking. I said he's using 10 IUs of growth. And he goes, shit, that's it? I was using 18. Because they come in these 18 IU vials. And so I asked him, like, why are you using 18? He goes, I never had the right bacteriostatic water. So I'd use like regular water. And supposedly it breaks down in that. So I just had to take the whole thing at once. And he's, I was 6'5", 290, and you just think like, man, 6'5", 290 and shredded. Like it's amazing how many drugs somebody can, put through themselves and still live through it,
Did you see the Steve? I'm so bad.
Oh, Vigorous Steve.
Did you see his response that he came out with?
Yeah, I like Vigorous Steve.
Yeah, I mean, he was like this. He's calling this TRT. This does not qualify as TRT.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's not TRT dosages. Those are way higher. Now, the other stuff that he was taking wasn't that high of a dose. It was fairly on the lower end. I think it was like 60 milligrams a deca. Like it says, like cruise dose. Or whatever.
Well, yeah, he said cruise dose.
Yeah.
He had it right there on the inpatient form, right?
Yeah.
So that implies that that's not where he was hitting it at.
Yeah, he was taking more than that, and that's I don't know. It's interesting. I was watching a video with Chael Sonnen this morning, and he was talking about the Liverking situation. He said, hey, the Liverking asked for an apology, and like I'm going to give it to him, and here's why. And I didn't necessarily agree with everything he was saying. He did say something interesting. He said the Liverking has a responsibility, right? Like he's like the Liverking. He didn't cheat anybody because he's a character. This is the way Chael put it. He's a character, and so like it kind of like doesn't count. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he cheated a lot of people out of their money by the people that thought that, hey, I'm going to take this pill and get like this. However, like I said, he rarely it's a weird thing to judge because he wasn't an in-your-face advertising guy. He was in your face with the Liverking character, but he wasn't in your face with the ancestral supplements. There's a lot of people that don't even know that he owned that company.
Well, that's my point, and it's I love that I landed on the same take as Chael Sonnen because listen, dude, you and I grew up. We were right there for the first of it. We saw The Real World on MTV. There was nothing real about The Real World. We saw Survivor. We saw all these reality shows pop up on all these other channels. It was just only a matter of time before a reality show popped up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right. It started with wrestling, worked to MTV, made it its way over to E! And Discovery and all that, and now it's on Instagram. Like I think I told Nsima this morning. I think the Liverking's natty, but Brian is fucking juiced and sauced out of his mind, right? But that character of his is natty, and I don't necessarily, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, train hard. Was that not real?
Caricature, if you actually look at it, it kind of is a spoof of ancestry. It's like a caveman living in a modern day, and a caveman in a modern day would use steroids.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point.
A caveman that gets on a private jet and also, is surfing and doing all these other things. That same caveman would also take steroids, like in this age as a character.
Well, even there though, like he was like that comedian that plays Tomato in Cars. I don't remember his name. This wasn't him. I doubt that when he was asking for seconds from his wife or grab me coffee, I don't think he was going more. This was a character that the guy was playing. Why why can't we just accept that? I don't really feel like, dude, he was selling you some supplements. Big deal. No one, you shouldn't think that supplements are going to get you there.
There's an interesting way to look at it too. Is like, I don't feel cheated out of any money because I never spent any money on anything that he was selling, or I never like went out of my way to do anything he was doing. Like, I was already eating liver. Like, I actually looked at my Instagram and I was taking liver pills since 2017 that I've posted on Instagram. That are from some cheap brand that I got on Amazon. Like, it was some no-name brand with like a cow, on the front, like a cartoon cow. And I'm like, oh, I've been actually doing this forever, for a long time. And then, like then the Liverking stuff all came out. And I think a lot of the Liverking stuff that actually came out, I know Mark and I really inspired Paul Saladino. In the beginning, like, he came to my first carnivore, meetup. So he was like following us in the beginning, was Paul. Now Paul's got a much bigger following than I do, and he deserves it because he works his ass off and puts out a lot of really good content. And so that's great, right? But we met him way back, and then even way back then, I remember Dr. Saladino telling me, hey, this guy from Ancestral Supplements, he would like to talk to you. So I guess Liverking has been following our stuff since way back then as well.
I mean, everybody's been following your stuff, dude.
Because they had known about.
You guys are the OGs, and that's why.
And I don't know how long he's been selling these supplements or had a corner on this market. Like, I don't really know any of that. That stuff like still needs to be looked into. I am very, very curious. He obviously has a lot of money. There's a lot of money around. When you go to his house and you see what he has, and there's obviously a lot of money there. Did that all come from these supplements is such a weird, hard thing to answer, because I've heard his story about how he's accrued all the money, and it was like his wife was a dentist and she had a dental practice, and they ended up selling that for $5 million. But to go from $5 million selling a dental practice to over $100 million and taking home $30 million, it seems like a stretch. I don't know. I don't know if anything's going to come out about that, if anybody's going to really question that or push that. And it's like, is the $100 million thing also part of the lie? Is it also part of like, I have more than I'm saying?
Part of the character.
Is it part of the character? That's what I'm saying. Is it part of the character? Because when you look up online, you write, how much money does Ancestral Supplements make? And you Google that, it'll say $1 to $10 million. Now, we know those things are off all the time. They don't have people's net worth right all the time. And they don't, these things aren't kept current. So who knows? That's just the only number you can find. There's no other number that you can find saying Ancestral Supplements reported this much money this quarter or whatever. I couldn't find any of that stuff, But I've looked, these are some of the questions that you get. Mark was saying on his podcast, is the story about his kids being sick and him needing to fix that? It seems to come across weird a lot of times. It seems to come across like different a lot of times. Like, is that a true story? And then like, what was the exact problem, and what was fixed? It's like, it's not very detailed. It's just like, the kids were so sick and they were dying, and so we had to figure something out, and we figured this out. Is that part of the story as well? How much of this dietary stuff did Liverking get from Paul Saladino if they were friends for 5 years? Or it's like, did they meet up and already have all kind of the same kind of information? I'm sure they've learned a lot from each other, or at least Liverking has learned a lot from Paul. But how much of the stuff was in practice? Because it seems like they have a very similar diet. The diet practices seem like almost identical with, the liver and the honey and the maple syrup and the fruit. It's a little bit different than a carnivore diet. I know Michaela Peterson came out, and she had every right to say this. Is kind of funny. She's like, people already think we're weird. Let's not, make us look any weirder, our carnivore community. But I would just say that the Liverking is not in the carnivore community. Just because you eat meat doesn't mean you're in the carnivore community. The carnivore community is really about staying away from a lot of these plants and plant toxins and things like that.
Am I allowed to push back on you on that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, dude. Guy, his character is pretty fucking carnivore, bro. I mean,
yeah,
meat,
but he
bone
eats,
marrow, liver. How is that not carnivore?
Because he also does rice, potatoes, fruit. So it's like a mixed diet.
Okay,
like
I
a
guess
carnivore
so.
diet is an all-meat diet. So if you say, hey, go on an all-meat diet, but you're going to have rice, potatoes, and fruit, that's not an all-meat diet anymore.
Does he ever feature that in his posts, though?
He shows some of it. Yeah, he shows it.
A little bit here and there?
Yeah.
a little bit here
And
there.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I mean, we've talked to all sorts of different nutrition people, and I think having some plants in your diet is probably a very smart idea. It's definitely something that's part of my diet, but it's not a big part of my diet. It's maybe 5% of my diet, but having some of those things once in a while, I think, are important. Like I told you, I had a terrible stomach ache the other day, terrible, because I had eaten some apples, and I haven't eaten apples in a long, long time. And it just really, really messed up my stomach for a good 5 or 6 hours, where I felt like I was going to die from eating some apple slices. So when you do these diets, you have to also be careful for like things that can come back and get you. That's why I do think it would have been smarter for me to have had an apple somewhere along the line in the past couple months, but I just haven't. And that's why I think eating some fruit here and there is a good idea to keep your stomach ready for anything you might eat,
I mean, that's on the back of the podcast that's coming out before this one with Jay, talking about, some cooked vegetables and ripe fruits, right? That was sort of his thing. And stay away from whole grains, keep it with squash and roots and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. It's like, it's as much as I've done these diets and as many times as I've done these things, I've also made the mistakes just simply because like not thinking. And so I wasn't thinking, I haven't had apples in a long time. And I ate kind of a lot. They were like those little apple slices come in a bag, and I ate like a bag of them. So that's probably like 2 or 3 apples. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of apples at once. And that's the dumb mistake. The dumb mistake isn't having a couple apple slices. The dumb mistake is eating a lot of them after not having them for a long time. That was a bigger.
Yeah. I a couple things to your dietary point. It's perspective, right? You hear the Petersons talk about it a little bit like a burden, and then you hear other advocates like Dr. Shafee, right? Am I saying his name?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so bad with mangling names. He talks about it is a freedom, right? I mean, it's a lot of it is perspective. I guess a lot of it is particular tone to how it comes across, right?
Yeah. And the other thing Mark and I were just talking about is like, when I was talking about Horseshoe and saying he's 6'5", 290, I mean, those are the guys that Mark and I have been around a lot. So when we met Liverking in person, saw him face to face, and he's like my height, he might be like an inch taller than me with the hair. Looked him dead in the eye, shook his hand, said hi. He's not that big of a guy. When somebody's a huge guy, you're like, oh my God, like that guy's jacked and he's on the juice, And it's not like like I said, it's not like we 100% believed him, but we wanted to believe. We wanted to be like, you know what? I hope there's somebody out there that's doing this naturally. And I don't even know why I thought that, like now looking back on it, because I don't really care. But I just thought it was cool that he was doing this, and he was saying that he was natural. I'm like, okay, let's see when we meet him. And we met him, and he, looked us dead in the eye and said he didn't do it. We chose at that point to just say, cool, fine, let's move on. I don't know what you do in that situation. That's the biggest problem. Is like, so people are like, I can't believe Mark didn't challenge him more. And what are you supposed to do? Flip over the table and say, you're fucking lying to me, Liverking. I know it. It's not an interrogation. It's
people
a podcast.
Aren't thinking that through. It's better to err on the side of just fine. I mean, you look sus as fuck, dude.
You're not going to get anybody on your podcast if you act like that.
No, if you're just trying to gotcha and expose people, I mean, listen, there are people out there that are gifted, and there are people out there that are really good at cheating.
Yeah.
To know who's who and to find the line, that's not your call to life.
Joe Rogan had us on he talked about us on his podcast, and he's like, I can't believe that the Bell brothers thought this guy was, and Joe Rogan has had Matt Frazier on, who won the CrossFit Games, they were talking about SARMs, and Matt Frazier, I wouldn't even know where to get this stuff and whatever, and Matt Frazier sitting all jacked and ripped. But Rogan didn't keep pushing him to see if he was on the juice because, he won the CrossFit Games and that's tested, so he must not be on anything, that kind of thing. He didn't really push it. He didn't even ask him, I don't think. I mean, he might have asked him, but I think he said no. But then he didn't push him after that because that's not what you do. You know what I'm saying? So when Rogan's like, I can't believe that they believed him, that doesn't necessarily mean that we believe him. We just moved on after the question because it was over with. Hey, we asked him. He said no. Cool. We'll just keep moving here. I mean, what is the purpose to, sit on that question forever? The other thing is people talk about guys like Jocko, and I don't have any proof that Jocko's ever done anything, but he's a big dude. He's a guy that you might think might use some TRT, and he says that he doesn't, and Rogan chooses to believe that because they're friends. Is that true? Who knows, man? Like with all these things, who knows? And it's hard to tell. So it's I don't know. I think it's interesting that people have criticized us for, they say that we believed it, but at the same time, it's like I don't actually believe anybody's, like, the way that I look at it, really, honestly, is the only people I really believe are natural, and I will go, I'll say, yeah, they're not, is if they show me their blood work. And I think, like, from now on, like, moving forward, I think that just needs to be the standard, is if you want to claim that you're natural, put out your blood work. Show people. Obviously, that stuff can be manipulated too, which will be coming up soon, where people start manipulating their blood work and putting out fake blood work or something, right? That'll be another thing coming up. And it's like, how do we know it's his blood work? Oh, you got to fingerprint the guy or something. It's like, at what point does it get so crazy, And do we really care? Like, if we go to see a Marvel movie, would we rather have Thor's abs be etched in with special effects, or would we rather have them just have them, Like, it's either way, these characters are going to look superhuman. Either way, they're going to punch the guy up in post-production, or he's going to do it himself, with steroids before the movie even starts shooting, And I think that, I don't know, man, it's just interesting to me. Steroids definitely have a place in our society. They've been around for a long, long time, and there's a really bad stigma on them. And what I would like to do is sort of get rid of that stigma so that we don't even have to have these conversations. I think the problem is everybody wants to take away your accomplishments once you say that you use steroids. So once you use steroids, like how you got that $100 million, that was because of steroids. Or how you did this is because of steroids. And it's really not. Like, Liverking obviously is a genius when it comes to marketing. He's brilliant. He's one of the best.
And maybe business in general, right?
He might be one of the best marketers we've ever seen in the history of the world, And the way that he did it and built it and cranked it up, I mean, that's something to be really proud of. It really is. And the fact that he used steroids to do it, what's really interesting and sad for Brian, I think, is that he did do all that. Like, he did that. He built that empire. He made that happen. He became his own king, and he just had this one problem that he lied about. And it just kind of sucks that that's the way it went down, because he did build something really cool. He did help a lot of people,
Is there redemption for Brian?
Absolutely.
Where's the fallout?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tell you, he's one of the most interesting people I've ever met when I went and met him. And I like what he's doing. I think it's cool. Mark had an interesting idea. He said, I think he should just bury the Liverking. That is definitely an idea. I mean, what a great time to just take that helmet out to a field and just bury it and say, I'm done with this. I'm Brian Johnson. Trim up his beard, cut his hair a little bit, and just be like, I'm here to talk to you about health and fitness.
I mean, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, that is perfect, because I've considered this guy a wrestling character.
I love the guy
the entire time.
I actually love the guy, and I wish we could know the guy more than the king.
I have no big deal. It does not bother me. I thought it was cool that he would drag 200 pounds in Manhattan.
Oh, it's very cool.
So cool, right?
It's very cool, but do you have to go through that much? Like, the other thing is, like, do you have to go through that much spectacle anymore? He's already established this great name, now it's maybe not such a great, but he's established this character, right? And does he need to make, now he's like walking around with a lion and riding horses and doing all these other things.
Dude, step on the gas. Maybe not as often, but still step on the gas with these feats of just ridiculousness. So, which is what his whole character is to begin with.
What I'm saying is, like, I almost, now maybe the fans might be different, but I see him as more valuable talking about health and fitness in a real way as himself. I see that being very valuable. But I see, as far as the Liverking goes, it's a joke and a fraud, and it's over. That's the way I think.
Do you want him 20 pounds lighter and not red?
I don't want him to be anything. I want him to be him. I want him to be healthy. Is he healthy? I don't know. Is that healthy?
Is he healthy at this body state he's at right now?
I think he's got a lot of issues like I have that he was hiding. He seemed like he's in a lot of pain. I think he just doesn't show it and just doesn't tell you. I mean, like, I can tell I have arthritis. I'm fucked up. I can tell when somebody else is too. And he didn't move great, he didn't have like, I think Mark could help him a lot with a lot of this movement pattern stuff that he does. But he needs to do a lot of that stuff because he's got things that are kind of broken. And so working out twice a day and doing all, like, it's not healthy. You know what I mean? Just because you're ripped, it doesn't mean that you're healthy.
I mean, could you not relate to that though? I mean, you still want to pull 700 pounds.
I can relate to it in the biggest way possible. I think him and I have a lot in common. We're both pretty grizzled, and you still think you have something to prove. You know, you still want to go out there and lift heavy and do cool shit. You know, and so I mean, I think I have a lot in common. I think we all kind of want the same things, and like, I would love to be as shredded as the Liverking. And what's really interesting is that it's hard. I would say it'd be almost impossible for me to get there and stay there without like a lot of drugs, you know, for a long period of time. And then I think, like, is that what I really want to go through to get there? You know, it's a lot, and it's a lot of work. You have to put in a lot more work, you know, to get there and stay there like that. So, yeah, not to discount anything he's done with his physique. It's incredible. But then again, we talked to Chris Kruger in here, right? Well, actually, that's when you were sick, when I interviewed Chris Kruger. And
the Beast Feast Rest guy, yeah?
Beast Feast Fast. And
thank you.
And he's a guy that says, like, if you were to poll, you know, like 100 women, would they want the bodybuilder? Would they want like the Jay Cutler physique, or would they want the Chris Hemsworth physique? And he's like, you'd probably be 100-0 on the Chris Hemsworth, you know, like the more aesthetic physique. And so, like, is Liverking's physique even aesthetic to the other half of the population? Like, do women find that attractive? It's hard to say. You know, I know guys like guys that are jacked, but is he too jacked? You know, for the women crowd, I wonder if there's like a poll on that, you know. And then, like, of course, at some point, like I said, were you looking up Thor?
I mean, yeah. I mean, does this? I mean, I don't know, Chris. I mean, he's still giant. I don't even know if this is like real, like. I mean, to the point, not to tear him down,
like,
but
Liverking is more squatty and jacked.
Right.
Like, he's got like a different kind of physique.
Well, he's 5'6".
He's shorter, yeah.
He's
Chris
5'6".
Hemsworth is taller, and he's probably bigger even. But I'm saying it's like a leaner.
Yeah.
Well, I think he actually didn't use Chris Hemsworth. I think he used Brad Pitt.
Okay, sure.
So he used somebody like even like leaner. You know?
The Fight Club.
Yeah.
Everyone says Fight Club. It's Fight Club photo of him.
In reality, you're right. Chris Hemsworth's actually probably a lot bigger than Liverking even. But just like the look of it, like the stockiness of it, is that appealing? You know, it's hard to really tell, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess not everybody can be Brad Pitt though, right? Like, I'll never look like Brad Pitt.
No.
I never could have looked like Brad Pitt. But if I can put some shoulders and chest on my fat endomorph body, at least it helps a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point is how much is too much, man? That's this whole conversation. How much is too much? And it's being explored in a lot of realms. For God's sakes, our cars go sub 3 seconds, 0 to 60.
See, I think the Liverking looks really good, except for like the protruding abdomen. And I always find that to be a problem. I always find that to be like one of the weirdest things on people. And then you go, is that because of massive amounts of HGH? And then it really begs the question of, was he also using insulin, which a lot of people use to stay really lean, right? And if he was using insulin, there's probably no proof of it, because it's hard to, like, how you gonna like really test for that or whatever. But that's just another thing, that usually the so-called GH gut usually isn't a growth hormone gut. It's usually an insulin gut, you know? And so that's hard to say too, is like, if he was abusing HGH, was he also, you know, abusing insulin along with it? There's just a lot of questions. Like, this whole thing brings up a lot of questions. I don't even know why I'm so fascinated by it, to be honest. Probably because I made a whole movie about this and haven't seen something like this happen in 20-something years. You know, I remember back when we were looking at the things going on in baseball. It was I mean, it wasn't 20 years, but it's close. It was 2004. You know, when we saw like the whole scene with baseball, and remember when that was going down and how many people were talking about that. And a lot of people don't even really care that much about baseball. They just cared about talking about, you know, who was on steroids and who wasn't, and brought them in front of Congress and, you know, all these kind of crazy things. And it's the same kind of message. It's like, if you're selling supplements to kids on Instagram. You're available to the public. You're on, Instagram. Do you have a responsibility to? But it's crazy because like no one else ever had a responsibility to say they were on steroids.
I understand and I agree with you 100% with that. But that's the one argument that seems so unfair to me. But what about the kids? I mean, we can what about the kids on anything.
Yeah,
Chris.
I don't like what about the kids.
I don't either. I think it's disingenuous. I really do. Disingenuous or naive. One or the other. Obviously, as an adult society, we have to protect our children and have safeguards and regulations. Yeah. But you can't what about the kids every aspect of life. You just can't.
Yeah, and then like if you're worried that like why are your kids on Instagram all the time anyway? Then like there's nothing really good on there. Right. That they're gonna get out of that, So yeah, like, and then is a kid gonna watch? Like, that's the thing is like, I said this all the time with Hulk Hogan. I never once watched Hulk Hogan and wanted to run out and do steroids. But what I wanted to do was run out and lift weights. I wanted to do the things that were healthy about the practice that Hulk Hogan was preaching. And in a way, it was really beneficial, man. Like the Hulkster really fired me up. And like I was a young kid and I wanted to be like him. Now, a lot of kids look at superhero magazine, like superhero comic books and whatever, and they go, if I could only be like Thor. And Mark and I were like, reading The Incredible Hulk and these comic books going like, well, why can't we be like that? Rather than seeing it and going like, oh, wow, what a fantasy, it's going to sweep me away. We're like, no, we're going to become the Hulk.
Is the moment of realization for a child? Because honestly, I'm really late. I slow this stuff down with my kids a lot. But is the moment of realization for a child that Santa Claus isn't real outweigh all the magic you had years prior?
For example, Santa Claus is a great example because I use it in Bigger, Stronger, Faster. Santa Claus is lying to your kids. Straight out, just lying to your kids. There's this guy, he comes, he brings you presents if you're good. That's the same thing as saying, hey, if you're a good boy and you eat all these things and you eat your liver, you're going to get jacked like me, and there's a lie behind it. Now, if you followed all those things and did all those things and got to the end of it and you didn't quite look like him, but you got a lot of benefit out of it, is that bad? And then you found out that he's on steroids and you're like, you lied to me. But what about all the work you put in? Does that discount all that work? And like I said, I think that's the problem with steroids from the beginning is people work hard. You don't want anybody to take away your work. You don't want anybody to take away what you are or who you are. So you want to be strong. You want to be strong in front of your fans. You want to be strong in front of your people. And I think that's why the Liverkings still owes us a good apology. I think that's one thing that I wish he could come out and do is come out and give us a real apology. Don't be like, I tried this and I tried that, but it didn't work, because we know that that's not true. We know that the things that you tried actually worked because you're jacked. So, you can come out with a better apology, but, after that, like I said, I think there's redemption for him.
Maybe a conversation.
Yeah.
Like maybe just standing in front of the camera and a script isn't. Maybe this deserves a long conversation. Have a conversation with you. Have a conversation with Mark.
Yeah, long form conversation.
I think so.
I would definitely offer him that anytime. I'd love to talk to him about it. But like I said, at some point we're gonna have to forgive and forget and be over it. I mean, like I said, I didn't lose any money on it. Hopefully you guys didn't lose any money on it. And if you want to eat liver, it's really good for you to just go out and buy some liver, and that's about it. End of the story, right? But there are a lot of other tenets that people can follow. I don't know. It's all up to you guys what you want to do with your body and how you represent yourself. For me, I like to try to tell the truth as much as I can. But as you see, people get caught up in that, and it doesn't always work out. So I will see you guys soon. Until next time, see you later, Russell buddy.